I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. Today is Kris King. Uses they, them, theirs pronouns. Kris King is an anxious Utah trans non-binary individual who is just trying to survive and spread a little humor at the same time. They live with their partner and gecko, spending most days hiding indoors away from the world. Kris is also involved with a local nonprofit group, Queer Meals, which provides resources for struggling LGBTQIA+ individuals. And now we'll hear from Kris. Thank you very much.
So I just gotta eat the mic, yeah? Eat the mic.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pretend that I'm shaking because of all the coffee I've had, but it's really because I'm actually really anxious about this, so I'm gonna try and not anxious cry, because that's always embarrassing. Okay. So I'm Kris. I'm non-binary, so my pronouns are they, them. I live actually just down the street that way with my partner, Grace, in our gecko. And I'm anxious all the time. So this is probably going to start out pretty depressing, so brace yourselves, and then it's going to get lighter, and then when you guys ask me questions, it'll become a joke, because that's what my life is. So, I would like to first say that we often don't talk about the really, we tend to focus on the lighter aspects of the queer community trying to fight for their rights, like we would bake a cake, right? We would all agree to bake a cake for somebody who's getting married to their partner. But we don't talk about the fact that this last week, Shanti Tucker, Dejanae Stanton, and Vitasha Bell, those are all Black trans women who were murdered in this last week. That brings the total this year of just Black trans women who have been murdered to 19. And that is just the ones we know about. That is just the women who haven't been misgendered when they've died. That's just the Black women. We have so many trans people of color who are dying every day. And we don't think about this. We don't see it, and it's not in the forefront of our thoughts all the time, which it should be. And instead of working up from the top of the queer community, such as the white and gay lesbian community, we need to be working from the bottom of the community. We need to be working to lift up the trans and queer people of color. And just as a little information, the life expectancy of a Black trans woman of color is between 31 and 35. So I don't know how many of you would argue me dead, but it was a painful number to think about. And really, from the moment that trans people come into this world, they're kind of already dying. So, that was my depressing start. Sorry. Life is depressing, but it can also be fun. So I kind of want to use the analogy of like, if you consider the queer community to be Mount Everest, right? The higher you go up on Mount Everest, the less oxygen you have, and the more your brain is dying the further up you get. And so, really, the people who are on the very top, who are struggling the most, are trans people of color. And I'm gonna keep saying that. So, our number one priority is trans people of color. So, our number one priority is
Trans people of color.
Perfect. Okay, so, and I know it's easy for me to get up here as a white trans person and say these people are struggling and all these things when I don't truly understand how hard it would be. And I know it's nice to say these words, but we need to be doing things. And so if you'd like, you can fill out your email, and I'm going to be starting a list of GoFundMe accounts and people's personal cash apps so that you can send money to trans women of color who are struggling. This can go towards anything like gender confirmation surgeries, hormones, even just like paying bills to try and survive. Because the trans community has a really big problem with homelessness because it's so hard to keep housing, and it's really hard to keep housing, and it's really hard to keep a job when you're trans. So we have this massive problem of homelessness. And as mentioned in my bio, Queer Meals is a local group, and a lot of times we have trans people or queer people who are struggling with their housing, and sometimes they just need a couch to stay on for like 2 or 3 nights. We have a guy who came in, and he's trying to get a job, and he was looking for someone to stay over the weekend until we could get him a hotel voucher. We finally found someone who was really great and said that he could sleep on their couch for a couple days. So if you'd like, that's a local group that you can get involved with. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of name recognition with Encircle, but there's a lot of other groups that also really need volunteers and really need help. Okay. So, how to be a trans ally? I think the first thing that everyone should really focus on is pronouns. And like, as cis individuals, the easiest way for you to let trans people know that you are comfortable using their pronouns is introducing your own. And be willing to stand up for us. So if you say, like, hey, I'm Kris and my pronouns are they, them, you know, then anybody who talks to me knows that, hey, I'm gonna try not to swear. I'm gonna fight for your pronouns. And so if you as a cis person can introduce your pronouns as he, him, or she, her, you are telling people that you are gonna respect their pronouns. And like, it doesn't seem like that's a very big deal, but it really is. Because like, I describe someone using the right pronouns as like, you know that great feeling when someone tells you you're beautiful or handsome and you just like, ah, and you blush, you know? That's what it's like when somebody uses your right pronouns. It's somebody else saying that they recognize you as a person, even though that might not match up like physically with what your type is. And if you aren't sure about somebody's pronouns, most trans people are okay with you asking, just clarifying, like, hey, I just wanted to check and see, wanted to make sure that I knew your correct pronouns, and ask them privately, like, step aside, have a private conversation with them, make sure that they know that they can be open with you and that you are a safe place and that they can be the real person that they are with you. Also, use your voice even when we're not around you. So like, stand up when there's transphobic jokes. Stand up when somebody starts to make fun of Caitlyn Jenner. Like, I don't like Caitlyn Jenner, but so help me, I will fight anybody who tries to dead name her or misgender her or anything. Cause like, fuck that. People deserve to be respected. Like, so if somebody dead names someone that you know is trans, correct them, 100%. If they use a wrong pronoun, correct them. Because you have a louder voice than we do, and other cis people listen to cis people. The bad cis people don't listen to trans people, that's the problem. So, that's just like something to be aware of is pronouns. Also using inclusive, gender inclusive language. So I'm non-binary, which means that I don't identify as male or female. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle or kind of something else. Oftentimes I don't feel like I'm anything, you know. And so it's hard being in a society that is incredibly binary, using only male and female terms. So instead of saying, like, we've all heard the LDS, like, brothers and sisters, instead of using that, say, siblings. So I've told my siblings that when they want to refer to me, instead of saying that they're, this is my sister, it's now, this is my sibling, Kris, and that way they're not accidentally gendering me. Another one is folks, spelled with an X, that's also really inclusive.
How does that mean?
So like, trans folks, or I don't know, sorry, I'm blanking now that you've asked me a question.
And that term being in general, just like good morning, folks.
Yeah, I found that to be a really like broad term that a lot of people don't have a problem with. I mean, there's like peeps and comrade, you know. But yeah, so I generally try to go with things that aren't specifically gendered, such as guys or ladies and gentlemen, or you know. There's also there's also a non-binary prefix, like instead of Mrs. and Mr., it's mix, and it's abbreviated MX.
That's exactly what I was about to say,
Yeah.
the righteousness of private pageant that's being held tonight, and you can come, walk down, and Thursday Studio is now being called the mix.
Yeah.
It's now the righteousness mix.
Yeah, which is really, it's cool. But a lot of people don't like know always how to say that, so mix. Something to be aware of, if you know somebody who has transitioned since you've known them, or has come out since you've known them, and you are talking about them, don't ever use their dead name. So, if you're talking about a friend of yours, you can say, this was when my friend, or this was before my friend came out to me, and then you still use their correct name and pronouns. So even though you're talking about them before they came out, before they transitioned, before they might look more male or feminine, you still always use their real name and their pronouns. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far? Sorry,
I was wondering if you could give us an example of a call using the pronoun in a short conversation and how it would be fixed.
Oh yeah, okay, this is a good thing. So a lot of times when we mess up on pronouns, our first reaction is to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, like, I do know it, and I swear I'm gonna do better, and like, I'm practicing and all these things, you know, because your anxiety rises up and we want to make sure that the person knows that you care about them, right? And we understand that you want to make sure that we're okay, but it's better to not ask them to make it okay for you. So if you're in a conversation, and you are talking about your friend, you could say, oh, she left something here, I mean them. And then you continue on the conversation and you would say, they need to come back and pick this up, or I can drop it off to them. So, sorry, what's that?
So you're saying just don't make it a big deal?
Yeah, don't make it a big deal. We can tell when you're trying to use our right pronouns. Like, we know people are working at it. And like, we can tell who's trying to be degrading and everything. So as long as you are making conscious effort, that's so important. And also, if I'm gonna be around somebody who I struggle with their pronouns, I'll practice like the whole day before, like thinking about them in my head and make sure I'm slowing down everything that I'm saying so that I make sure I put the right pronouns in. Because I know how valuable that is to me, and I wanna make sure that that person knows how valuable they are to me as well.
So would you say, how are you?
How are you? I'm all right.
So I wouldn't say, how are they?
Oh, if you were asking about them,
To someone else.
yeah, like how are they? If their pronouns are they, them, how is she? How is he?
That's because your pronoun, even though it's he, we refer to, when I'm talking to you,
Because you is not gendered. Yeah, you is specific and not gendered, so.
So this is maybe really stupid, but this is a trick I heard, because people sometimes have a really hard time because they, them we're trained to use as a plural.
Right,
So somebody told me once, because they had a hard time with it not being plural, that they just imagined someone having a mouse in their pocket,
right. Mhm.
so that they could use it as a plural.
Right, or like you and your shadow,
Yeah,
they will be coming over.
just to get used to it in the beginning.
And it does get easier. The more you use it, the easier it gets. The easier it is to be gender inclusive with your language. So, I mean, the more you think about it at the beginning, the more you really focus, you slow down, you make sure that you're getting things right, it's just gonna get so much easier. And people really appreciate it. Yes?
So Chris, how do you do this in a like business environment where the name has not been changed legally and you have to use a dead name?
Right,
So you're trying to be conscious of the person's trans name,
right,
but you have legal documents and things that you're working with that have the dead name on it.
Right.
And that's legally.
right. So I've actually worked in the medical field for a while. And so I know that there's always gonna be people's dead names on stuff. Like I'm currently working with my company, or not my company, I work for New Skin, and I'm currently working with them to get a name badge that doesn't have my dead name on it, but it's hard because legally they're supposed to have your legal name on there, right? So it's gonna have to depend business to business, and advocating for using someone's real name in conversation and things, and not bringing up someone's dead name. I know that at the hospitals, it's a problem with like medical bracelets, but you can insist that they change their name, or if you go with a trans person to the hospital, put a little piece of tape with their right name on it, and their pronouns, so that they don't have to look at it. And so, even if you can't do anything about it, like I can't change my passport, and like my partner had to put that in on our insurance yesterday, and like we can't change that, and we can't change like my legal gender, but I know that the only time that we ever use that is for a legal reason, and she never uses that for any other reason. So there's not really a perfect solution of what we can do other than letting trans individuals know that you are 100% supportive of them and their real name and pronouns, which is hard.
So are you saying the dead name is what they were born with?
Yes, so pre-coming out, name, whatever. So I think some good basic rules are never ask someone their dead name. Don't ask them about their genitalia, because a lot of people will message you on social media and stuff and be like, well, what do you have? Are you a penis or a vagina? I'm like, I'm dead inside. So, and so like, the good way though to focus on it is like, I don't know, am I gonna be having sex with you? Then you don't need to know.
So could you do like a legal name change to get rid of, isn't that?
Yeah, so.
You don't have to do a gender marker change to do a name change.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people do also fundraise for helping get their names changed legally, even if it's just on a driver's license and passport, and that can really help lift gender dysphoria. So if you know trans individuals, they're usually always trying to like raise money up to do that, because it is quite an expensive process. And also it's entirely up to the judge with whether they would approve it. So it's hard being trans and going into the legal system and trying to get stuff changed. I think you had a question.
I have a fear of offending someone by asking them their pronouns,
Right.
like in case they think their pronouns are obvious or something.
Right.
Would it be like when I say my name's and my pronouns are she, her,
Mhm.
or yours, or I mean,
Yeah.
how do I say it without?
Yeah, that's totally a great way to do it. Again, I wouldn't do it in front of a lot of people so that you're not bringing attention to the fact that they could be trans, and that way that they would be able to tell you in confidence. But yeah, saying and my pronouns are she, her, like, what's your name, like, what are your pronouns, or sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I'll just say, like, just want to make sure I'm getting your pronouns right. Would you mind telling me what they are? And again, for the most part, the people who get offended about you asking about pronouns are generally cis people and not trans people. Because trans people are usually just thrilled that you like care enough. So.
I don't think any decent cis person wouldn't be offended.
You would think.
I mean, unless they're really insecure in their
Right.
sexuality.
Some other things to be aware of are like positive language to be using. For the most part, transsexual is not a good word to use because people don't want to focus on the sexual organs of a person. That doesn't change who you are, that doesn't describe your gender, that's not you. It's just the way your body's shaped. So I wouldn't use the word transsexual. Someone is a trans individual or a transgender individual. It's not transgendered individual. Another thing is gender affirming surgeries rather than gender confirmation surgeries. It's mostly just making sure that people understand that you are always the person that you are, and what your body looks like doesn't impact that at all. So I may not be on hormones, and I may not have had surgery or anything, but I'm still a non-binary person, even though I might not look like it. Sorry, this is all really scattered.
No, it's kind of helpful to hear it in the way that it's coming out of us, because these are the questions we have, and a lot of the time we haven't had questions before.
Yeah.
But like, I'll tell you how this is getting mixed in my head a little bit. I teach Russian. Russian is not an easy language for most people to learn. I had a student come over the other day, and we were just working on basic Russian pronouns and when they're used and how they're used. And by the time we were done, drilling, because you have to drill it, she was exhausted and she couldn't focus and she was getting everything wrong. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to want to learn something that is that foreign to you. And so when you haven't thought about it before, I think having everybody being more understanding of everyone, because some people, especially if they're like on the autistic spectrum, they're introverted already, they already have problems with English. Like they don't even speak English. Even if they speak English, they don't really speak it. So to change it up now, they're like, and I think as long as we're all kind of taking into account each other's anxieties, it seems like it would be easier.
Well, and that's that's why introducing your pronouns to other cis people is just as important, because there might not be a trans person there, and there might not be somebody there who needs to specify their pronouns, but it can get you starting the conversation with other cis people who might not know that that's even a problem, or that's even something you should think about, right? Like, some people don't even know that cisgender means that you identify with the gender that you are assigned at birth.
Well, here's a question, and this will sound, I don't know how it sounds. How is the person immediately going to be considered, well, I don't know. There's a huge Spanish-speaking community here, and a bunch of, more than you can count, of Spanish speakers that don't speak English, that are struggling, and we're not going around trying to learn Spanish for them. And I've never had a Spanish-speaking person get upset at me for not trying to speak Spanish to them. In fact, I get uncomfortable when I get in with Spanish-speaking people because I speak fluent Spanish. And I don't know if I'm welcome to speak Spanish with them or not. A lot of the time, if I start speaking Spanish with someone whom I know speaks Spanish, I went to Betos the other day in Orem and started speaking Spanish, and she was offended. And she spoke to me back in English in a very and I wasn't hurt by that. I just cataloged that as interesting. And so it's a weird territory here. And I wouldn't go out of my way to know a trans person's pronouns and things, not because I'm a huge bigot, but because I haven't made a hobby of that. Does that make sense? Like some people aren't making a hobby of learning Spanish, even though there's a ton of Spanish speakers here that are very uncomfortable. And we kind of almost have to be selective. I know two trans people now. You're the second one. And the first one, I can't even remember what her name used to be before she transitioned. I can't even remember. I don't even need to know it, right? But what I'm saying is, it takes time. I had guitar lessons with that person for a long time, and then that's how that happened. It was very organic. It wasn't me going, okay, she, Erica, Erica. I didn't do that. And so I'm just wondering what kind of forgiveness is there going to be for people that don't make a hobby of this? It took me a long time to get to that question, I guess. Not a lot, right? Not a lot.
I think that respecting people's pronouns shouldn't be considered hard enough, should be hard enough that it should stop anybody. Mostly because I look at kids who are, if kids who are between the ages of 4 and 6 are able to understand that some people are he, some people are she, and some people are they, then any adult should be able to handle that with no problem.
This isn't true because adults learn more slowly.
Right.
Like I'm 40 and my ability to learn things has gone.
Right, but we also have a higher capacity to learn and a higher capacity to understand the people around us, unlike a limited growth of a child. So if they are able to understand on a simple level that every person deserves to have their pronouns respected, then we as adults who understand the complex relationships with people should even more understand that pronouns are always to be respected.
That it's important, but
Yeah.
not that they would suddenly be good at doing it.
Yeah, you're not gonna be right away, you're not gonna be perfect. It takes forever. I'm a trans person, and I still accidentally misgender other trans people. And whoa, do I feel like shit when I do it, because I care. And I know how I care. So you're not gonna be perfect, but recognize that you're not perfect and work really, really hard. And then it's gonna just get easy.
I introduced my non-binary child to somebody at P-Flag and then said she right after.
Right.
And I went out to the car and I was just like, I'm so sorry. And they were just like, hey, don't do that anymore. Quit apologizing. Just go on and act like nothing happened. I know you're trying.
Yeah. Well,
And I didn't know any of this language before
Right.
my child
Right.
came out to me.
Well, and I think that it also forces a trans person to say, it's okay that you misgendered me.
That's right.
Because it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
But we understand that people make mistakes. We understand that people don't always know our pronouns right away. We understand that it's a transition. It's our whole thing. We transition, we get it, we move around, we know. So we're never gonna sit here and hold a grudge against you because 20 minutes ago you accidentally misgendered me. As long as you're trying and as long as I can see that you're trying, as long as you're not trying to make me make up for your mistakes, then that's fine.
I know Katie's freaking out, it's probably over time, but I just wanted to let everybody know, there's a Katie Couric documentary about the trans community, and I don't remember the name of it, but I think I watched it on Netflix, maybe. Gender Revolution? There we go. It is excellent, and it talks about a lot of these kinds of, what happens if I get pronouns wrong, and it talks about a lot of this. It's an excellent documentary, it's $2 long. I would recommend it to everyone, not just people, it's really, really well done.
I've heard some good stuff about it. I think you had a question.
It was answered.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's the goal. Yeah.
I'm in it. You probably wouldn't really, I have a cousin who has a transgender son, and it's easy to call him. Right. But with Texas, I haven't seen him. But, and then another cousin who's gay. So is there, so when you talk about pronouns, does someone who considers themselves gay, are they still he or she? Is it just a trans person? And then
Yeah, so you can be a cisgender gay man, and then your pronouns would be he, him, and you would be attracted to other men. So your gender and your sexuality are like totally different. You, well, they can be kind of attached. Gender and sexuality are very broad topics, but you can be both a transgender gay man, so your pronouns would be he, him, and you would be attracted to men, but you would be a transgender individual. So,
There are two articles.
It's like,
no, go for it.
It's just like there are two identities that make their gender identity and then their sexuality.
Right.
There's a gender graph here on that.
Yeah. So like sexuality is like who I go to bed with, and gender is like who I go to bed as. Awesome. I don't know what else, but there you go.